Hey, vinyl community, Sunday night coming at you in almost spring, right? Thought I'd do something different tonight. One of my buddies in the community, Kenny's audiophile, he did a piece on spiritual jazz not too long ago. So I thought I would do a piece on spiritual music and rock. So let's get into it. The Beatles. This is obviously Magical Mystery Tour. The song I'm thinking of is Fool on the Hill, which was a Lennon and McCartney. Now, it kind of has a whimsicalness to it, which kind of reminded me of Harrison. Kind of thought it was a Harrison song at first, but when I double checked, it was Lennon and McCartney. The Fool on the Hill sees the world spinning round and all that. So that's number one. Next we have Brian Wilson. This is a best of the Beach Boys. I have Pet Sounds. God Only Knows is the song. They're the Beach Boys around that era, early 70s. God Only Knows from Pet Sounds. This was the reprise best of, which sounds pretty good to my ears. And it's got stuff from Surf's Up and Heroes and Villains, Smile, Smiley Smile, and all that. Carl and the Passions, that whole period. From and Holland too. I love that. But that's my favorite Beach Boys period. Will the Circle Be Unbroken? Now that's a standard. We'll see that appear a couple of times in albums. This was a great album with Earl Scruggs, Doc Watson, Merle Travis, Vassar Clements is on here, Norman Blake, a lot, as well as the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, Jeff Hanna and those guys. And Will the Circle Be Unbroken is an old spiritual Southern song, about very, very spiritual, about passing of the writer's mother and the hearse coming and the whole thing. But it's very spiritual. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by. And I looked up by and by means basically having faith, things are going to get better, we're going to get through it type of thing, which is a lot of what this music, when I say spiritual, it's not sad spiritual, I think of it as positive, good vibe spiritual. I mean, spiritual means a lot of things to different people. This also has a studio version of Will the Circle Be Unbroken, the Gregg Allman Laid Backs. Just a terrific album. If you don't know it, check it out these days. The one he wrote with Jackson Browne and Multicolored Lady, and he did a really cool version of Midnight Rider on there. Okay, also another Gregg Allman live, showing off my Gregg Allman because the brothers are coming to town soon. Next month at the Garden. I hope to go see that. It remains to be seen if I will, but so this has the last song is Will the Circle Be Unbroken. It's got Cowboy on here. Martin Mull introduces Chuck Leavell's on here. This is great. He toured the Laid Back album was in '73, and that was the '74 tour, which I got to see at Carnegie Hall. Now, the band, they often get picked for spiritual. Some people say the weight is spiritual, pulled in Nazareth. Of course, Nazareth, we all know, refers to Nazareth, Pennsylvania, which was the Martin Guitar Factory. But, there's Go Down, Miss Moses. There's a lot, I Shall Be Released, people think. But I'm picking from this album, Daniel and the Sacred Harp. So it's spiritual. I mentioned Samson. Did I mention Samson Delilah? Sundays. I didn't mention this. On Sundays, when the Grateful Dead played Sundays, they would often put into the set or open with Samson and Delilah, it being a Sunday. So for years and years they did that. Daniel and the Sacred Harp tells the story of Daniel and the Sacred Harp from the Old Testament. And it's really, really, really good. Robert's in it, some of his cinematic best. It's really good, the band. I love it. People know I love the band. So speaking of the Grateful Dead, we have Live Dead, great live, their first really live album. Well, Anthem was live, sort of. It was a composite, but this was all live, 100% without the overdubs, pretty much. And the last song is "And We Bid You Good Night." Lay down, my dear Jesus, let me make my bed, lay my head. You don't really want to hear me sing on a Sunday night, but you get the idea. We bid you good night. It was Pinder family from the Bahamas, I think Jerry got it from. And then when they did, we'll have Skull and Roses here in a minute, but when they did Going Down the Road Feeling Bad, they would often put a little acapella, not acapella, but on the Jerry on the guitar would do "And We Bid You Good Night." Concert for Bangladesh, my box is a little beat up. My Sweet Lord, we talked about Harrison. That's pretty spiritual. So is Waiting on You All. A lot of All Things Must Pass. All Things Must Pass itself. The songwriting on it is extremely spiritual, which reflects what Harrison was going through, having gone through the Maharishi in '68 with the rest of the Beatles, and then the breakup of the Beatles, the next year really going into '70, and just, a great album there. All my records are falling. Let's go from the back of the stack. I have this in no particular order. So I wanted to pick something from Lennon, and Imagine is kind of the obvious choice in a way, although it's a spiritual song, but it's almost aspiritual in a way, I really like Watching the Wheels from this. It was about his life with Yoko, and here they are, in the Dakota. Ironic, this came out, right in 1980 before his passing, and getting shot and all that. But Watching the Wheels, to me, is a very spiritual song, and the music is very spiritual. If you listen to it, it's Zen, it's Buddhist, but it's very spiritual, very uplifting, and positive. It talks about family and love and home and the things that are important to us, right? This is an interesting album. This is volume 2. I don't have volume 1. A Woody Guthrie tribute that was done in 1968 and 1970 at Carnegie Hall and the Hollywood Bowl. And let me just tell you the musicians on this. John Beeland, who I don't really know in dobro, Ry Cooder, Rick Danko, Chris Etheridge from the Byrds, Jill Bowe, Lee Von Helm, Garth Hudson, Bill Lee, who is Spike Lee's dad, who was a jazz bass player, Richard Manuel, and Robbie Robertson. So a lot of the band. And then for the primary people, they had Judy Collins, Richie Havens, Pete Seeger, Joan Baez, Country Joe McDonald, Odetta, Arlo Guthrie, Ramblin' Jack Elliott. And then there's narration. So it's really interesting. There's a song on here called Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ will be laid in his grave, something like that. And Arlo does it, and it's, Woody's son. So it's really great. I highly recommend this. And the first one, here's a picture of the band, or all the, the band and all the singers and narrators. There were narrators who did it. Robert Ryan and Will Geer were the narrators on this. And the first volume has Judy, Bob Dylan is on it, Richie Havens. So that's pretty cool. Richie Havens is on this one too. 2 volumes. Okay. Moving right along, we have here Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Now, I really didn't do Christmas music, but I did want to throw this one in because I love Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I love Gregg Lake. I love King Crimson. And I believe in Father Christmas. It's a very heartfelt, I think, a very spiritual song. I'm, violating the Christmas rule here to not do Christmas music, but this is great. This is Works. This is Works Volume 2. Yeah. I don't know where there it is up in the bottom, Volume 2. Okay. Leonard Skinner. Of course, the South. We did a lot of the Will a Circle Be Unbroken, the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and John McEwen, who helped Gregg Allman get a contract and stuff. Ronnie Van Zant, and I heard the story about this. The song I'm picking from this is Simple Man. It was from the first pronounced Leonard Skinner. So I have the greatest hits. Forgive me, some of my vinyls. Greatest hits. So Gary Rossington and Ronnie Van Zant, that one of the lead guitar players and the lead vocalist, had both lost their grandmother. Ronnie lost the grandmother, and I think Gary had lost his mother. So they sat down and they wrote a song. So they came up with Simple Man, and it's very, very spiritual. Very, you'll hum it. Has a great melody to it. Very, very heartfelt for a band that's known for like Freebird and all that. Much like the Allmans. Two of the best of Southern rock, and there were so many. I don't want to leave out Marshall Tucker and Charlie Daniels. They probably did a lot of stuff. By the way, this will be volume 1 of this if this goes well. I want to put Elton John in there, going across the pond now, but sticking kind of with the country theme. I think this is my favorite Elton John album. It's the first one that I bought. It's just, I'm not a big one, talk about packaging. I do love the artwork on my albums, but this is just a gorgeous album. And mine seems to be in pretty good shape, shockingly. But the pictures and stuff of Elton and Bernie Taupin and all of that. The song, anyway. What's the song, David? Get to the song. The song was Where To Now, St. Peter, which I kind of reviewed. Kind of interesting. This came out, I think, 71. And they kind of copped the sepia tone, and he put Bernie Taupin on the back and him on the cover, right? He's on the cover. Yeah, he's on the cover, and Bernie Taupin's, which is kind of what the Grateful Dead did with the band and all the band members, and then they had Robert Hunter, Anyway, Where To Now, St. Peter. It's about a soldier that had fallen and finds himself at the gates of St. Peter, had fallen and died. Very, very moving. But there's a lot of, burn down the mission. Everything on here is just great. I would say this is a all killer, no filler. Not crazy about that because, sometimes there's songs in between that are filler, and sometimes filler's nice. I don't mind filler. So it doesn't all have to be killer. Toulouse Street, just a great, great Doobie Brothers album. Every time I listen to this, I've kind of gotten into this recently. Big Doobie Brothers fan, but also I'm getting into their deeper history. Every song in here, there's a Sonny Boy Williamson song in here. I'm digressing, and listen to the music. It's just a fantastic album, Toulouse Street. Anyway, and I won't show the inside because it's a little risque, but just let you know that. Here are the guys, because they shot it at a bordello down in New Orleans, so you can imagine, which is where Toulouse Street is. So the song from here is Jesus Is Just Alright, and this was originally done before the Doobies by the Byrds. I looked for a version of the Byrds. I didn't look in my CDs, but I was shocked that I didn't have it. It's on the Easy Rider disc, the music from Easy Rider that the Byrds did, or just Byrds, Easy Rider. So the Reynolds wrote it, the Reynolds family, and it was a gospel tune, and then the Byrds picked it up. And the Byrds were very, very, I should have put Turn, Turn, Turn in here. Maybe I'll do that next time. Again, I'm trying to do stuff that's a little off the beaten track, but Jesus Is Just Alright was a big hit for the Doobies as well, and I love the way they do it. I love the Grateful Dead. So this is the Skull and Roses, also called the Skull F. I'm trying not to curse. I'm trying not to put profanity. Stick with the YouTube rules. So there's a song on here, Wharf Rat, which is the beginning of the third side, I believe, or maybe the beginning of the last side. Where's Wharf Rat? And it is the story of a drunk, and there's a theme, beginning of the fourth side, which goes into the Not Fade Away, Going Down the Road, and the Going Down the Road has that, and We Bid You Good Night. So I didn't realize that. So the fourth side of this actually of Skull and Roses, which was their second live album after Live Dead, which came out in '71. So that fourth side begins with Warfrat, which is a very spiritual tale, and then ends with "And We Bid You Good Night." So that's this is an amazing version of the Dead. I'll show you the inside of this. Haven't seen it. It's one of my favorite pictures of them. You know, in Pigpen, it was Pigpen's kind of last hurrah as Big Boss Man. It really kills it on this one. Stuff from Winterland as well as Manhattan Center. And I think they're Fillmore East too, right? Is Fillmore East stuff on here? Yeah, Fillmore East. Fillmore East, Manhattan Center, Winterland, so both coasts, the 71. Great stuff. Warfrat, good spiritual tune. I'll get up and fly away. All right, I'm going to show the back of this. People know what the front of the Blind Faith album. Presence of the Lord is obvious. Clapton, one of my favorites. Up there with the Beatles and the Stones and Dylan and Grateful Dead. And that's just a beautiful, and Steve Winwood and Traffic. This mixture of Traffic and two of the members of Cream and Rick Gretsch from Family. This is just, I wish they had done another album, Blind Faith, because they were like a super group of the time before the Traveling Wilburys, and this is In the Presence of the Lord. Interesting, Clapton wrote this and did that kind of before he got off the heroin, but it was, I guess, foreshadowing. I mean, that album was '69, Blind Faith, and then he really got off the heroin around '70, '71, and it took him a while to get the alcohol, but he did, and he's survived. Blood, Sweat, and Tears. This is the second album Al Cooper produced, and has just great players on it. Just amazing people. Besides Cooper, drums, Bobby Colomby, David Clayton Thomas, of course, he brought in. They were working closely with the Chicago people, because it says courtesy of James William Guercio, who is the producer of the first two, actually more than that, Chicago albums. But and there's a chorus on here, just great people. Who was Lou Soloff was a trumpeter, Jerry Hyman. Anyway, I digress. Al Cooper, of course. And the song is, they covered Billie Holiday's God Bless the Child on this Blood, Sweat, and Tears, the second album. Okay, moving right along. Pistol Packin' Mama, that's kind of a mainstream. God Bless the Child, this is something people probably don't see. Garcia produced this. It was a bluegrass album with David Nelson and Frank Wakefield, Don Reno, Chubby Wise, and Pat Campbell. Came out in '75 on the Rounder, and there's Don't You Hear Jerusalem Moan, so it's a little spiritual ditty. I mean, bluegrass in general tends to borrow heavily, as people know, from traditional Southern music, gospel music, and I think the early guys, after church or whatever, sped up a lot of the hymns, and that became bluegrass music. If you listen to it, I know I packed this full of a lot of Grateful Dead, so forgive me. But this is Jerry Garcia Band. This was Jerry's favorite studio with the Jerry Garcia Band, Cats Down Under the Stars, and it has a song on here, Palm Sunday. So that's pretty religious. That's about as religious as Jerry got. He did some spiritual stuff, which I'll have to look around for. I'm trying to think of the stuff, because I really love the stuff that he did with Merle Saunders. This is a great album. Mostly, Don and Keith are on here, and John Kahn and Ron Tutt, who was the drummer for Elvis. Merle is on here. Maria Muldaur is on a couple of songs. Steve Schuster doing the flutes and stuff. The brass, and yeah, good album. Cats Down Under the Stars. This is Faces, long player. Not very exciting cover that Rod and the boys put out, but also with the Jerusalem theme. There's a traditional Jerusalem at the end. It's very short. It's 1 minute and 55 seconds, but I thought I would would mention it. And I'm crazy about the Faces: Kenny Jones, Ronnie Lane, Ian McLaughlin, Rod Stewart, and Ronnie Wood. So you can't really go wrong with the Faces. They're tried and true. So Bob Dylan, we haven't really gotten into Bob Dylan. Here's Slow Train. This was from '79, I believe. And I'll pick Gotta Serve Somebody. I mean, you could pretty much pick almost any song on here for a spiritual song, because this is the beginning of his Christian period with Saved and Shot of Love. I think it was three of them. So there's Precious Angel, there's Slow Train, which is, there's a man gave names to all the animals, which is very spiritual. And, you know, do right to me, baby, do unto others. So they all have spiritual themes, but I think Gotta Serve Somebody was probably the biggest hit from this, and carries the message. You know, gotta serve somebody. It may be the devil, it may be the Lord, but you gotta serve somebody. Also on the Dylan theme, this is one of my favorite Bob Dylan albums, New Morning, the Father of Night, I believe it's called, which is just beautiful. He was, married and having kids up in Woodstock at this point. It's a very calm album for Dylan, but very experimental. And Father of Night is actually the last song on it. And you got Bromberg on here, Charlie Daniels that we talked about, Buzzy Fighton, who I saw play guitar with actually, Gregg Allman, Al Cooper again, and Russ Kunkel and Billy Mundy holding down the drums, produced by Bob Johnston. Just a great, great album, New Morning. John Wesley Harding, another Dylan. I'm doing my Dylan triple. So I'm picking John Wesley Harding. I mean, there's a lot of religious imagery on this album. I Dreamed I Saw St. Augustine. We could pick that one. Probably some other things, but I'm going to pick Watchtower. And I really believe that Watchtower was inspired by not necessarily the Jehovah's Witnesses, although Van Morrison has a song, Kingdom Hall, that really rocks out. But it was inspired by the crucifixion of Jesus, because you've got the Joker and the thief. There must be some way out of here, said the Joker to the thief. And then you have Christ in the middle. So he's kind of Jesus is kind of a silent participant in the song. If you listen to it, it's there. And it's, the song is completely redone, of course, by the famous version on Electric Ladyland by Hendrix. But the words and the spirit of the song, and even the melody, where it kind of pulls you, two riders were approaching and the wind began to howl. The whole mystery of the crucifixion and the resurrection, and it's excellent. And I think if you take this version and you listen to this, and then you listen to the Hendrix version, and you put them together, and you think about the crucifixion of Christ, it's there. Delaney and Bonnie, real Southern rockers, were big inspiration to Duane Allman. Duane Allman, in fact, is on this album. This has an all-star cast. This was Motel Shot, and it was a lot of acoustic stuff that they did, of jams they were doing in motel rooms. And it's really, really interesting. I like it a lot. Some people might not be finished enough for them. You've got, besides Delaney and Bonnie, Graham Parsons, Bobby Whitlock, of course, that went on to the Dominoes, Jim Keltner, fantastic drummer, Dave Mason, Duane I mentioned, Carl Radle, Leon Russell, John Hartford, the great bluegrass picker, and Kenny Gradney, who went on to Little Feat. So this is great. Bruce Botnick was one of the engineers who did the Doors albums. This is just terrific, terrific album. So there's a lot of spiritual. Will the Circle Be Unbroken, again, is on this one, on Motel Shot. And then there's the song Talking About Jesus that Bramlett wrote. So Going Down the Road is on here, ironically enough. So there's a lot of the themes, Lonesome. A lot of these could be Where the Soul Never Dies. The whole first side has Rock of Ages, which is a spiritual on it. So, but I'd say, my pick on this would probably be talking about Jesus. Delaney was from the South, and that was his culture. and he was a Christian, and he was it was a big, mover and shaker. I think he was from Mississippi, if I'm not sure. He was born in Mississippi. Delaney, really great guy, and anything of his. So Bare Trees, I didn't know what I was going to pick from this, and I'm going to pick. There's a song called Dust, and it's a little oblique. It's not an outright spiritual theme, but it's there. That we all kind of go back to ashes, dust to dust, and it's very, very Fleetwood Macized, if you will. It's very stylized. This was the Fleetwood Mac, of course, with Bob Welch and who was Danny. Danny Kerwin was the second guitarist on this, and then they had it was before Stevie, so they had Christine Perfect, who became Christine McVie. Great album on Reprise, Bare Trees from early 70s, 70, 71, 72. So we got a 72, but I think it was recorded in 71. Dust is the song from that. Kind of a deep track. It's got Sentimental Lady, Bare Trees. It's got Danny's Chant. It's got some really, really good stuff. Another Delaney and Bonnie, kind of mentioned them, but this has God Knows I Love You. So everything I said, previously about them. This album has a little bit more polish to it and is electric and the band and all that, if you will, versus Motel Shot, but also as great. And Free the People is on here, the last song, which is also sort of spiritual, but I think God Knows I Love You. And I suppose that was inspired somewhat by Brian Wilson, God Only Knows I Love You, but it's his song. Here's a fun one. I know I've hit the Grateful Dead pretty hard tonight. So here's the Robert Hunter that we had talked about. I guess he's fresh in my mind, who's hanging out on the edges of Working Man's Dead. This was his debut as a soloist. Bob does not have the most dulcet of tones, as we know, but he does a nice. The second side of Boys, Does God Look Down on the Boys in the Barroom, mainly forsaken but surely not judged. And he does a cappella, nice a cappella on that. So this is Tales of the Great Rum Runners. I think the Dead people just released Tiger Rose. They just remixed that. So that's Great Rum Runners. And I'm running way over here. So this is Burgers. True Religion is my pick. Hot Tuna. Hot Tuna's third album, my fave. Then you'll see that True Religion, Hallelujah, Yorma, and Jack really bring it on this. It's a great album with Papa John Creech and Sammy Piazza on the drums, and there they are in the Pacific with that great car. So that's it. If I can, I will do a version 2 of this, and thanks for your patience. And please remember to like the video and comment down below. If there's anything you'd like to see spiritual, if I have it, or you have some spiritual songs that you like from rock or more present, contemporary, I guess, artists rather than jazz. I should do my spiritual jazz thing too. So that would be good to answer Kenny. And shout out to Kenny's audiophile. Spiritual jazz in California. Check out his channel. Check out Tony's LPs or Us. He's in Jersey. He's great. Check out Mike. I think it's MGK Boston. He's up in Buffalo now, but he's really funny. He's hilarious. And Steve Westman's audiophile. He does some great stuff. He's hooked in with all the Rhino reissues and stuff like that. And there's so many. Dylan down at Noble Records, and Vinyl Richie out on the West Coast, and Mazzy and the whole crew. So have a good one, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.